On a balmy night in July 2005, Carol and Reggie Sumner were getting ready for supper in their residence in Jacksonville. They were savoring a peaceful existence side by side, looking forward to what lay ahead. But their serene evening suddenly became terrifying when a knock sounded at the entrance. Carol, ever gracious and welcoming, opened it without a second thought. What followed was unimaginable. The pair was suddenly plunged into a horror. Their dwelling ceased to be a safe haven. Hours afterward, they had disappeared, abandoning a trail of puzzling hints. A cut telephone wire, a vanished vehicle, and untouched medicines. As their relatives hunted for explanations, one query hung heavy. Where had Carol and Reggie Sumner gone? Carol Margaret Alfred, born on February 16, 1944, grew up in North Charleston, South Carolina. In her teen years, she fell in love for the first time with James Reginald Sumner, often called Reggie, who entered the world on September 18, 1943, in the same place. Their early romance faded after several months, opening doors to their separate, frequently stormy, grown-up experiences. Carol encountered troubles in her partnerships. She wed twice. Her initial union dissolved in divorce, and her next was marred by household abuse. In February 1987, her second spouse, defying a protection order, showed up at her house and fired 7 shots into her. Despite grave wounds, Carol endured, but her assailant ended his own life upon facing law enforcement. Carol's 2 offspring, Rhonda and Frederick, came from her 2 marriages. At only 10 years old, Rhonda tended to her mother throughout her healing, displaying the strong connection they possessed. Resolved to reconstruct her existence, Carol committed herself to her kin and profession. She labored for more than 25 years in diverse positions, including at the Charleston Air Force Base and in nearby college. She also handled evening shifts at Belk and a cable firm to sustain her household. In the year 2000, an apparently ordinary call to the cable company reconnected Carol with Reggie, her old high school flame. After drifting apart, Reggie had served in the Navy and been employed by the CSX Railroad. The conversation ignited a meeting, reviving their forgotten affections. By 2001, the duo, now in their late 50s, tied the knot in a quiet event at Carol's house. Their kids rejoiced, witnessing Carol discover joy after decades of hardship. The pair established a loving routine, becoming treasured parts of their neighborhood in South Carolina. Among those nearby was Tiffany Cole, a youthful lady born on December 3, 1981 in Florida. Brought up in a big family, Tiffany relocated to South Carolina in her youth despite enduring personal hardships, including her father's passing. Carol and Reggie embraced her, regarding her as family. In 2005, owing to medical issues and the desire for milder weather, Carol and Reggie chose to move to Jacksonville, Florida. Carol had acquired hepatitis C from a transfusion following her shooting, which progressed to liver cancer. Both she and Reggie also dealt with diabetes and osteoporosis. Amid their arrangements, they transferred their Chevrolet Lumina to Tiffany via an adaptable installment setup, demonstrating their kindness. The shift to Florida proved particularly tough for Rhonda, who remained in North Charleston. Despite the separation, she maintained everyday chats with her mother. On July 10, 2005, Rhonda became alarmed when she couldn't contact her mother or Reggie for 2 days. Filled with anxiety, she journeyed to their Florida dwelling where her concerns intensified. Upon reaching it, Rhonda discovered the place eerily silent. The duo's prescriptions, food, and even their wheelchair and mobility devices were abandoned. Their beloved pet, Mickey, had been neglected. Aware they wouldn't depart in such a state, Rhonda alerted officials about their vanishing, and the authorities promptly launched a probe. Noting the absent objects and the lack of the pair's automobile. 2 days following the start of the inquiry, officials found the Sumners' vehicle almost 50 miles from Jacksonville. The car was unsecured and the keys were gone. While examining the pair's residence, detectives spotted a bank record indicating a substantial balance. This prompted a check of recent activities, revealing multiple dubious withdrawals. Responding swiftly, the police reached out to the bank and locked the accounts to block further use. Subsequently, the police got a bewildering phone. The person on the line, purporting to be Reggie Sumner, stated he was away attending his sister-in-law's burial and had learned from a neighbor that his garage stood open. He also noted losing entry to his bank accounts and credit cards. Yet, the officer taking the call sensed something off right away. The voice appeared much too youthful for a man in his 60s. When the officer requested to talk with Carol, a young woman's voice answered. Doubtful, the officer inquired about reaching relatives to confirm their account, but the caller said their kin resided in a different state. Utilizing the number from the call, detectives linked it to a young fellow named Michael James Jackson, 23 years old. Logs indicated his phone was active close to the Sumners' home on the day they went missing. Deeper probing uncovered numerous calls to a rental car company where Tiffany Cole, a former neighbor of the Sumners, had leased a Mazda. The vehicle hadn't been brought back, but it featured a GPS device. Officials contacted Tiffany's relatives and her brother supplied her location. In the meantime, the GPS info showed the rented Mazda had been near the Sumners' house on the evening they vanished. Video evidence verified this, depicting Michael pulling out cash from ATMs with the Mazda in view behind. The path then guided detectives to a Best Western hotel in Charleston, where Tiffany had booked 2 rooms. On July 14, police held Tiffany, Michael, and 2 others, Bruce Nixon and Alan Wade, both 18 years old. An inspection of the hotel spaces revealed incriminating proof, including the Sumners' possessions. Reggie's bank card turned up in Michael's pocket, and the Mazda's trunk held Reggie's coin assortment, personal papers, and a checkbook. Freshly bought goods and a laptop were also uncovered. Tiffany was apprehended soon after near her residence. She still owned the Chevrolet Lumina that the Sumners had sold her. The kin of Carol and Reggie felt devastated upon discovering that Tiffany, whom they had treated like kin, could deceive them so terribly. Along with Tiffany and Michael, Bruce and Alan were also detained. The initial one to break during interrogation was Bruce Nixon. He described the scheme and disclosed what befell Carol and Reggie. The conspiracy began in June 2005 when Tiffany and Michael visited Alan in Jacksonville. During their time there, Tiffany reached out to the Sumners to inquire if they could spend the night, and the pair happily consented. In the course of the stay, Carol and Reggie referenced the $99,000 they gained from selling their South Carolina property, a fact that ignited a dark scheme. Tiffany and Michael recruited Bruce and Alan to assist in executing their plot. They thought the Sumners, with their ailments and routine habits, would be simple victims. On the evening of July 8, 2005, equipped with duct tape and plastic sacks, they reached the Sumners' residence in the leased Mazda, deliberately skipping the Lumina to reduce doubts. As they approached the Sumners' place, Tiffany and Michael remained in their vehicle, stationed unobtrusively down the road. Alan and Bruce, the additional partners, went to the front entrance and rapped. Within, Reggie and Carol were fixing fried chicken when they heard the noise. Carol opened the door, met by the 2 young males who courteously requested to use the telephone. Trusting and benevolent, she let them enter. Once indoors, matters rapidly worsened. Alan yanked the phone line from the outlet and Bruce displayed a play gun, menacing the pair. They compelled Carol and Reggie into the sleeping area where they tied and silenced them with duct tape. Employing handheld radios, Alan and Bruce reached Michael, who came into the house to hunt for banking details and treasures. Meanwhile, Tiffany lingered in the car at the street's end. After collecting the pair's items, including adornments, a safe, and Reggie's Federal Trust Credit Union bank card, the assailants pushed Carol and Reggie into the trunk of their Lincoln Town car. Reggie, clad in sleepwear and sporting an ankle support, and Carol, weakened from her liver cancer therapies, appeared clearly frail. The culprits then packed extra pilfered objects into the rented Mazda that Tiffany operated. The 2 cars departed with Alan and Bruce piloting the Lincoln, the Sumners confined in the trunk, and Tiffany and Michael trailing in the Mazda. Their target was a distant forested spot in southern Georgia chosen days prior for its remoteness. The crew had decided that if an officer halted them, the Mazda would race off to divert attention, but no such incident happened. When they arrived at the isolated site, the vehicles separated. 2 days before, outfitted with taken shovels and lanterns supplied by Tiffany, the group had excavated a broad shallow pit roughly 5 feet deep and spanning about 2 square meters. The Lincoln stopped close to the excavation, and the attackers unlocked the trunk, pulling the frightened pair out. Reggie was choked and forced to disclose his bank account code. Then, restrained and defenseless, Reggie and Carol were hurled alive into the pit. As earth was tossed over them, they fought futilely to escape. Their stifled screams quieted by the choking mass of dirt. Holding on to each other in their last instance, Carol and Reggie, who had wished to relish their revived romance, met a dreadful conclusion. Content: Michael went back to the vehicle. Thrilled at securing the code, the group drove away, leaving the Lincoln in Sanderson, Florida, before proceeding in the rented Mazda. They halted at an ATM to extract funds using Reggie's account, then went to a hotel to revel. In the days that followed, they sold Carol's adornments, utilized her bank funds, and expended thousands. They even hired a limousine, posing for pictures while showing off bundles of money and drinking champagne in a repulsive show of victory. Meanwhile, Tiffany and Alan went back to the Sumners' residence with bleach and rubber gloves to tidy the area and take more objects, including a computer. By July 16, detectives equipped with admissions from the captured suspects found the interment location and retrieved the victims' remains. The four faced charges of first-degree murder, armed theft, and abduction. The proceedings started in October 2007. The state offered compelling proof, including the statement of Dr. Anthony Clark, a forensic expert, who verified that Carol and Reggie had been interred while breathing. The specifics stunned the courtroom, underscoring the brutality of the offense. From the witness area, Bruce wept as he expressed sorrow to the victim's kin, voicing profound remorse, having admitted guilt to second-degree murder. He asserted that his young age and dread had shaped his choices. His relatives also begged for mercy, with his mother and sister declaring he was a decent individual who committed a grave error. In a moving instance, Carol's daughter spoke to the court. Representing her kin, she declared they had pardoned Bruce, convinced that her mother and Reggie would not have desired him to languish in jail. She requested compassion from the judge, showing remarkable empathy amid unthinkable grief. Bruce Nixon's admission and later testimony against his accomplices finally determined the destiny of the other accused, providing some solace to the mourning Sumner kin. The state constructed a condemning argument against Michael, stressing his direct involvement in both devising and performing the offense. Video footage displayed him buying rubber gloves alongside his partners, and his early police questioning exposed chilling facts. Michael confessed to awareness of the pre-excavated pit prior to the theft and recounted standing nearby with a light as Bruce and Alan entombed the Sumners alive. Despite his efforts to minimize his part, the state contended that his attendance and deeds revealed utter indifference to human existence. Phone logs positioned Michael near the burial area during the killings, and proof indicated he phoned the Sumners' bank from the location. He was also recorded on camera employing Reggie's ATM card soon after the deed. The panel viewed this as evident proof of his culpability. Tiffany Cole's representation sought to depict her as a susceptible young lady misled by Michael's sway. Her attorneys claimed she was ignorant the pit would serve to slay the Sumners, thinking it was meant to conceal taken goods. They offered evidence from a mental health specialist who asserted Tiffany endured psychological problems and had a background of drug misuse. Yet, the state drew a contrasting image, highlighting her central function in the offense. Tiffany had transported the group to the Sumners' residence, acquired the duct tape and gloves employed in the assault, and sold the pilfered adornments. Most incriminating, Tiffany had pretended to be Carol in a call to authorities, trying to persuade officials that the Sumners remained living. Her role in commemorating the offense, captured in images of the crew displaying stacks of cash and champagne, appalled the court. The judge stressed Tiffany's profound engagement, observing that she had gripped the light during the pit's digging, guided the perpetrators to the Sumners' home, and actively enabled the theft and slayings. Her deeds, he noted, were intentional and planned. On October 19, 2007, after under 90 minutes of discussion, the jury deemed Tiffany guilty of first-degree murder. 9 of the 12 panelists supported the death penalty. In March 2008, Tiffany Cole, then 25, received a death sentence via lethal injection plus life incarceration for the abductions and 15 years for each robbery count. Michael, also 25, and Alan Wade, 20, got death penalties. Bruce Nixon, who had aided detectives and testified against the rest, admitted guilt to second-degree murder. Originally confronting life behind bars, Bruce's assistance and displays of regret prompted the judge to lessen his term to 45 years. The verdicts led to numerous appeals. Tiffany's initial appeal in 2010 was rejected. In 2015, amid another appeal, she spoke to reporter Diane Sawyer asserting she had discovered serenity and transformed into a different individual. However, the prosecutor stayed unaffected, declaring that in over 20 years of his work, he had never faced an offense as atrocious as the torment and slaying of the Sumners. Tiffany's representation in the appeal contended inadequate legal counsel during her proceedings. Her attorney faulted her initial defense group, alleging they lacked preparation. One of her lawyers supposedly pursued a plea agreement and was unready for trial when Tiffany declined the state's proposal. The other lawyer entered the matter only a month prior to trial and had just become qualified to manage capital cases. Despite these contentions, Florida statutes consider all involved in an offense equally responsible if their actions aid the result, even if they did not directly lead to a victim's demise. Consequently, Tiffany stayed on death row. Her participation and the compelling proof solidifying her guilt in legal terms. Bruce Nixon's thorough admission and his aid to officials were crucial in convicting his fellow accused. For the Sumner kin, his deeds offered some resolution amid their vast sorrow. Nonetheless, the judicial processes for Tiffany Cole, Michael, and Alan Wade offered an intricate view of fairness, alleviation, and ongoing inquiries about their blame. During Tiffany's appeal, her representation argued that her trial lawyer had neglected to properly examine her mental state, troubled family history, and emotional weaknesses. Per the appeal, Tiffany's limited intellect and past of injury were not shown to the jury, omitting vital background on her inclination to be readily frightened and excessively obedient, particularly with males. Her attorney at trial opted not to block her after-arrest comments, but rather employed them to claim she was a small player, portraying her as a fine person who had succumbed to the sway of evil men. The state rejected these assertions, noting that Tiffany's original defense team had been capable. The prosecutor intentionally omitted referencing Tiffany's prior engagement in prostitution and drug trading, thinking it might damage her case more than assist. In the end, the Florida Supreme Court maintained Tiffany's death penalty, discovering no basis to reverse her verdict. In 2017, a decision by the Florida Supreme Court mandated unanimous jury suggestions for death penalties retroactive to 2002. This created opportunities for resentencing appeals for Tiffany, Michael, and Alan. Yet, a later statute overturned this mandate, introducing doubt to their situations. Alan Wade's representation highlighted his youthfulness. He had reached 18 merely 47 days before the offense and contended that teenage brain growth varies greatly from that of grown-ups. His attorney noted that if Alan had been a bit younger, he would not qualify for capital punishment. The court eventually changed Alan's term to life imprisonment without parole. Accounts later disclosed that while on death row, Alan had wed a French lady named Segrette with whom he had a youngster. The details of the child's creation stayed enigmatic since conjugal visits are forbidden in death row settings. Segrette mentioned she would only reveal the facts to her son when he matured. Tiffany continues imprisoned at the Lowell Correctional Institution, now in her early 40s. Although sentenced to death in 2008, she has persisted in pursuing resentencing. Michael's initial jury had suggested the death penalty with an 8-4 vote, which no longer satisfied the fresh requirement for unanimity. However, under Florida's revised statute, unanimous jury rulings are no longer needed for the death penalty, complicating his outlook. For Carol and Reggie's relatives, the judicial results evoked blended feelings. While the penalties provided a feeling of righteousness, they could not wipe away the agony of their absence. Carol's offspring, Rhonda and Frederick, described how they occasionally pictured their mother answering a phone call, only to be hit anew by the truth of her gone. Rhonda addressed the public about her family's choice to pardon the culprits, stating she thought her mother and Reggie would have extended mercy too. She even built bonds with the kin of Tiffany, Alan, and Bruce. Discovering recovery and forgiveness. For Rhonda, concentrating on how her dear ones existed rather than how they perished granted her tranquility. Carol and Reggie's remains stayed united in an urn at Rhonda's residence. A gravestone in a close cemetery commemorates them with the words, "Together forever." Their slaying stunned everyone who knew them, imprinting a lasting scar on the area. The offense attracted nationwide notice, reported widely by news outlets and showcased in a 2011 installment of Deadly Women on the Discovery Channel. Amid the sorrow, Carol and Reggie's lasting affection acts as a touching symbol of their resilience and the ties they valued until their ultimate breaths. If you found this case intriguing, remember to like the video and subscribe to the Hidden Cases files. We upload crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay alert, stay watchful.